Describing the UK's handover of a group of islands in the Indian Ocean to Mauritius as an act of great stupidity, Donald Trump. It linked Chagos Islands to Greenland in the Arctic Ocean, saying Chagos was another in a long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. And yet, later in Davos, Trump stepped back from the brink on Greenland after walking back from both using force over the autonomous Danish territory and imposing tariffs on 8 countries opposing his designs. Here's Trump writing after a meeting with NATO Secretary General. We have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Trump also said Golden Dome air defense discussions were ongoing, with Greenland essential to the system. Watch.
Denmark will be much safer if we do what we have to do with the Golden Dome. If they don't do it, you'll never have international security.
So why are Chagos and Greenland linked? And after a maximum pressure campaign on the Europeans, can Trump achieve what he always wanted on Greenland? But with the UK, Canada and others seeking out China, has the damage to the transatlantic relationship been done? And what, if any, are the implications for Taiwan and the world order? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by, from Washington, D.C., Grant Newsham, retired U.S. Marine Corps Colonel. We also have in the studio Tony Hu, former U.S. Department of Defense Senior Director for China, Taiwan and Mongolia, and also Michael Turton, Taipei Times columnist. A very warm welcome to you in the studio and also to Grant online. Thank you for joining us. Firstly, in Donald Trump's Davos speech, he cites an example of why Trump says the U.S. is the only power able to defend Greenland.
We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory, and hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that.
Tony, so U.S. occupation during World War II was to stop Nazi control or infiltration of Greenland. Does this help us to understand, Trump's strategic reasons on Greenland today?
Well, location is important, obviously, but the United States presence on Greenland at the time was to chase away the German presence. German, on the other hand, their presence was only weather stations. The weather station was allowing them to have weather predictions, allow better operations to interdict our ship convoys supporting Europe at that time. So I wouldn't say occupation, that's a little bit strong. The U.S. had presence there basically to stop Germany from utilizing for weather report purposes.
Right. Michael, do the reasons why Greenland was strategic in World War II, do they still stand today?
No, we already have all of the ability to access Greenland that we could ever need. I think people are obsessed with finding meaning in this theater of Trump. Mm-hmm. And so when Trump talks about Greenland, immediately people will start throwing up reasons, like the 1951 document where some admiral says, we should acquire Greenland. Well, people were always talking in that. We should acquire this place. Taiwan was one that people mentioned.
And Grant, let me bring you in to respond to those comments.
Well, Greenland is as important as it's ever been. It's location, location, location. Trump's a real estate man. He's getting that right. Dominates the North Atlantic, a key future trade route or naval route from the Atlantic over to Asia. So it's geography, and it is important. The comparison with World War II, the specifics, of course, vary. It is worth noting that the Americans did step in and take over Iceland for the British because there was a real threat, more of a threat of the Germans. But the point is that for America's hemispheric defense, and also for Canada's, ironically, having a substantial American presence in Greenland is very important. This talk of invading it, that I think is a distraction. Really, it would take about 2 platoons of Marines to take the place. But there's other ways to get what America needs, and I think they're headed in that direction.
And so in your view, let's talk about this framework of a future deal. What does Trump really want to do on Greenland, Grant, and what did he gain through this campaign that he couldn't have before?
Well, I think he was serious when he said he wanted to own Greenland. Some say that was just a negotiating ploy, and it could have been. But I think he was serious enough. But what he wants is to have really an American presence that is guaranteed in perpetuity and allows the United States to put in the military resources and sensors, missile interceptors, etc., that it needs, and also to preclude the Russians, the Chinese from getting in there. So he wants that to be guaranteed. And he said that you can only get it if you own the place. But there's ways to reach an agreement that gives you what you need. There's different arrangements. Did we have to go through all of this sort of toing and froing? Probably wasn't necessary. But at the same time, the president is the president, and he is. You take him for what he is, and it is in America's real national security interest to have Greenland. But it did seem to be a little bit overwrought on different sides to get here.
So do you believe that acquisition is now off the table?
I think so. There's something about land that people don't want to give it up. They have a visceral reaction to it. If you were to ask, say, Texas, say Mexico said, give us just 10 square feet of Texas. No, the answer would definitely be no. And I think going after it that way was inevitably going to sort of provoke a very strong reaction. So I don't see an acquisition taking place. But the fact that Mr. Trump was trying to buy or get Greenland like that, I think because it's Trump, the reaction is particularly unhinged. He's not the first American president or administration to try and acquire Greenland or to acquire other foreign territory. But there's something about Donald Trump that makes people's hair alight for some reason.
Okay. Now, Tony, we've heard about the Golden Dome. Explain to us what you think the role of Greenland would be in this Golden Dome, and therefore, why Greenland does remain very strategic to the U.S. today.
Well, the biggest ballistic missile threat right now against North America, United States, is from Russia and China, and their missile would come through the north. Right now in Alaska, we have the long-range radar and also ground-based interceptors. In Greenland, we have the radar but do not have an interceptor. So if we are able to install some shooters, we have the sensor, then it will complete that portion of the Golden Dome where we can protect ourselves from ballistic missile threat from the north. I think that's probably one of the reasons. Of course, other reasons are minerals and as the Arctic Ocean becomes more navigable, then Greenland becomes more important because of global warming, the ice caps are melting, so ships are going through. So Greenland's importance is increasing. So in terms of Golden Dome, mainly it's for missile interceptors.
Let's go back to Chagos Islands and Trump's social media post. A day before his arrival in Switzerland, he writes, "Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt that China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness." Now, the Chagos Archipelago was taken by the UK in the 1800s. In 1965, before Mauritius gained independence from the UK, the Brits separated the islands from Mauritius to form the British Indian Ocean Territory. In 2019, the International Court of Justice ruled that move unlawful, a ruling supported by a UN General Assembly resolution. Now, back in the 1960s and 70s, the UK had forcibly removed local Chagosians to establish the Diego Garcia US military base. As of May 2025, the UK and Mauritius agreed to transfer sovereignty of Chagos to Mauritius with the military base only to be leased back for an annual sum. Asked about why US Secretary of State Marco Rubio had stated the Trump administration's support for the deal in May 2025, Trump said this.
I think that when they originally were going to do it, they were talking about doing some concept of ownership. But now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it. And I'm against that. It's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe. Not to anywhere near Greenland, but I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
The words from President Trump were expressly intended to put pressure on me to yield on my principle. What he said about Chagos was literally in the same sentence as what he said about Greenland. That was his purpose. And the future of Greenland is a binary issue that is splitting the world at the moment with material consequences.
The highly strategic Diego Garcia is one of 2 critical U.S. bomber bases in the Indo-Pacific region alongside Andersen Air Force Base in Guam. It is located in the Indian Ocean, connecting the Middle East, South Asia and the rest of Asia. Michael, so is Starmer right? Was Chagos, just to pressure Starmer himself on Greenland? Or, is it genuinely how Trump thinks in terms of geostrategy?
I think that's how Trump is thinking, yeah.
That is, okay. And what parallels would you say there are between Chagos and Greenland?
Obviously it's a territory held by another power that the U.S. uses for bases. And I think that makes Trump feel insecure, that the U.S. is not secure, and he would prefer to have ownership.
Tony, tell us why Chagos, is so important to the U.S.
Yeah, the Diego Garcia base there, it's in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and if we don't have Diego Garcia, we will have a blind spot in our space operation, which is critical. In Diego Garcia, we maintain a part of our ground-based electro-optical deep space surveillance system. What that system does is keep track of space junk to protect our manned and unmanned space assets. So if we see a space junk is flying toward our International Space Station, for example, we will evacuate our astronauts. And if it's moving to one of our critical satellites, we'll try to maneuver the satellite to avoid it. So it is very important from there. And also we operate space control network, space remote tracking station. This is how we fly space, our satellites. If we need our spy satellite to go somewhere to look at another location other than the normal orbit, we will have to maneuver it. So there are different locations around the Earth to allow us, when we see the satellite, we can maneuver it. So if this satellite happens to be over Indian Ocean, we can maneuver that satellite. So if it's in Pacific Ocean, Hawaii, stuff like that, okay, or Andersen Air Force Base. All right, and also downlink, obviously, as a space assets see things, they need to send the information down, and you need to have a receiver station. So those are all in Diego Garcia. In addition, we have our maritime preposition ship there with weapons in case there's conflict in the area. They can get there. They can bring about 2 battalion worth of battle power for 90 days. So it's important that that location maintains somewhere U.S. can have access.
Okay, and bringing Grant in, just to add on to that,
Sure.
I understand that Diego Garcia, is the sort of cornerstone, has been for various operations, the Gulf War, Afghanistan, etc. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, but also, what is the significance of this for Asia, Diego Garcia, if there is any, and in particular, what might its role be in any Taiwan war?
Well, if you want the Americans to be active in helping to defend you, you'd better have Diego Garcia. Losing Diego Garcia would be the equivalent of the Americans not having access to Hawaii and trying to operate and to fight in the Pacific. That's how serious this is. It's also a very useful naval base, and as you've noted, for operating into Africa, up into the Middle East, to the eastern side of the Indian Ocean. Absolutely essential. What's often not mentioned is that, yes, there was a legal sort of ruling, but it was an advisory opinion that did not apply to the United Kingdom. So they didn't have to pay any attention to this. Additionally, there's 2 immediate problems that you have. If they give this to Mauritius, the Mauritians have signed basically an anti-nuclear agreement, which says that there will be no nuclear weapons or etc. in Mauritian territory. So that's Diego Garcia. So you immediately subject yourself to lawfare. Additionally, the British are going to pay about 35 billion. It's probably going to be more over 99 years. If they miss one payment, Mauritius can terminate the lease. Additionally, there's problems of Mauritius perhaps letting someone else, say China, develop some of the nearby islands, in which case you can neutralize Diego Garcia. Also, there's the small problem of not asking the Chagosians what they think about all of this. So Starmer is quite happy to turn them over to Mauritius, even though they have no connection with it. So the Chinese will make short work of Mauritius from a political warfare perspective and expect problems for the Americans. Why England is doing this, I don't know. But it does seem to be a deliberate effort to erode America's strategic position. It just doesn't make sense on any grounds.
Grant, why was it that the Trump administration agreed to this in May of last year?
They made a mistake. I think for Rubio, the State Department, to have said what they said was ill-advised, and that's putting it nicely. Why Mr. Trump went along with it when he met Starmer the first time, I don't know. They made a mistake, but for some reason, somebody has gotten to Mr. Trump and explained to him that Diego Garcia matters, and he's changed his mind. But they did complicate things like this. And back to your original question, what does it matter in the case of a Taiwan contingency? Well, you'd better have the Americans able to operate in all parts of the world, to include the Indian Ocean, if you're going to have any chance of defending Taiwan. And Diego Garcia is an indispensable linchpin. Britain is now saying, well, we have no choice. We've signed a treaty, but the treaty has not been approved by Parliament. The administration in England is trying to rush this through without proper consideration of it, or without, as I said, asking the Chagosians what they think about it. If they voted for it, they'd all probably stay. They would probably vote to stay with England. The whole thing, to put it mildly, the whole thing stinks.
And then probably there is that parallel with the Greenlanders in terms of, the Greenlanders making the choice of what they want to do. Grant, if I could just very quickly ask you again, do you think that there is also a shift in geopolitical situation or security since May of last year that has made this, more pressing for Trump?
Something's happened, and I'm not quite sure what it is. It does certainly, the PRC threat has always been around, but there's something that strikes me that for some reason Trump is being used as an excuse, say for the British, the French, the Germans, the Canadians to do things. And I'm not sure that you can blame it all on Trump. I think that these were things that were in train a long time ago. And the movements towards China on the part of the countries I just named, those are puzzling. But certainly the world has not gotten any calmer since last May.
Okay. So to that point, let's hear from Trump again during the speech in which he climbs down from using force against NATO allies. Watch.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
European analysts are saying that remembering doesn't just go one way, and that despite Trump's U-turn on using force or tariffs, the damage has already been done. So, Tony, sitting here in Asia, what's your assessment of the situation? Will NATO allies, ever see the U.S. in the same way?
Well, I think the NATO allies will not see the U.S. the same way during Trump's presidency. And I'm hoping the alliance will regroup after Trump departs, and the United States will once again be looked upon as a reliable partner.
Do you think that's possible, or do you think things would have shifted by that time?
I think it's possible. I think that, after all, we have the same core value. You don't deviate from that. Every president is temporary, even in European countries. So that policy can be changed. So I think that's possible.
Okay. Michael, I just want to quote something that a European politician had said to Politico. Trump's promises and statements are unreliable, but his scorn for Europe is consistent. We can no longer cling to this illusion that America is still what we thought it was. Do you agree with Tony, or have things changed forever?
Well, I think I agree with Tony. Before World War II, everyone hated the British, including the Americans. And then after World War II, suddenly we were all buddies. So it's very possible that there could be rapid positive changes for the United States, assuming that we have a president who understands how to achieve that.
Grant, just want to bring you in. The most worrying aspect is what you alluded to, the Europeans and UK, actually move into China's embrace again. Like sort of 10 years ago, we hear that Keir Starmer is about to head to Beijing to so-called revive golden era Chinese-British business dialogue. How dangerous is this time?
Well, when we talk about the Europeans, it's always good to talk about which ones are we talking about. Is it a slice of the elite, which is fundamentally sort of resentful of America, absolutely despises Trump, or is it other Europeans from different parts of the spectrum? Is it the Poles who are getting along very well with the Americans politically, militarily, and the Americans are going all in Poland, apparently supporting NATO. So once again, it depends on which members of NATO, which Europeans that you're actually talking about. The thing that you often see is that there's been problems between the Europeans and the Americans before. Remember when George Bush got us into the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan? Well, there was lots of resentment directed towards him, towards the United States, and vice versa. But I think that over time that the Americans will be seen as indispensable. And it always seems that whenever there's trouble, people do sort of come back and cozy up to the United States. Why these guys are going after China, I don't know. They should know better. But both sides have to be careful not to let resentments get the better of them, because that can easily get out of control. And when it happens, you end up with some problems that you don't need, and you have enemies and adversaries taking advantage of it. So this is very dangerous.
Right. Tony, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I think what they're doing, what Canada's doing, or what UK is doing, these are economic ties, okay? I think these countries are tired of having the tariff held over their head. And tariff only happens when trade happens. So I believe the Europeans are trying to grab the US market share in China. In the meantime, China is trying to grab some more market share from the American goods that used to go to Europe. So this is a situation where the United States need to look out, because can you recover after this relationship is established later on? And can you still regain your market share in China and also in Europe? So I think the direction it's going is not good for the long-term United States sustainment, because economy is everything. If we lose our market share during this period of time, because once again, using tariff as a weapon, the other country is going to take that weapon away from you by reducing trade. So I think this is what's happening.
Okay. Michael, Mark Carney, Canada's leader, calls this point in time not a transition, but a rupture. So is he overstating things? And according to all of us around the table here, this is a temporary thing that can go back to the status quo after Trump.
Well, I think every age likes to think of itself as the linchpin of history. This is a major turning point, but I still believe we can make it back, because Trump is temporary. He'll be gone someday. And the people around him are temporary. They'll be gone someday.
Right, okay. So there's another perspective, which is that, this is all down to a declining power. It's not just Trump-related. This is a declining power that's lashing out. Britain's decline handed over to the US, and that was another liberal democracy. I want to get you to address, is the US really in decline?
No, I don't think America's in decline. I've heard it at least 3 or 4 times in my lifetime people insisting that we were finished. We have a way of coming back. We're not the British after World War II, when we had just come out of a world war that bankrupted us and killed a whole bunch of us, and had an empire that we couldn't maintain. We're a country where people still want to invest. People want to come live here. We have an illegal immigration problem. Not too many other places around the world do as well. And if America can get its act together, improve its finance, start spending like drunken sailors, and apologies to drunken sailors, we've got our borders closed, we've got inflation under control, reindustrialize, get over that idiocy that shipped so much of our manufacturing overseas, and give people in Youngstown, Ohio, and Erie, Pennsylvania, some sort of a decent life other than getting addicted to fentanyl for a short bit. I think America can easily come back. I think we haven't lost it. I think the sort of the political animosities in the U.S. are very troubling, particularly when one side sees the other as evil to be destroyed. But America's not finished at all. And like a business, you look at the demand for something, and that tells you how valuable it is. And you look at the demand around the world for a sort of a strong America that is still ultimately a free society based on individual liberty. I think we're not done yet. And if we survive the Jimmy Carter era, we probably have a pretty good chance of getting over this as well. I think somebody who's 150 years old would probably tell me they've heard we're finished at least 7 or 8 times more than I have. So I'm reasonably optimistic, but we do make it hard for ourselves oftentimes, it seems.
Okay, well, we'll end it there. Thank you so much to my guests, Tony Hu and Michael Turton and Grant Newsham in Washington, D.C. Thank you. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.